If you or anyone around you are affected by the subjects of today's podcast, you can reach out to get help, advice, or support from our charity partners, Women's Aid, at womensaid.org.uk, or the Yorkshire-based organisation IDAS at idas.org.uk. You can also find these links and reach out to us directly via our website, takebackthebeat.co.uk, or email us at takebackthebeat@gmail.com. That's takebackthebeat@gmail.com.
Take back the beat. Voice note.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm okay. You okay?
Yeah. This is
Take
Back
back
the
the
Beat.
beat.
Voice Notes.
Voice notes.
That was very off-brand for us because,
I know that was quite a bit slower.
yeah,
today.
it was a lot slower.
Yeah, we're very excited. We've got a really, really exciting guest on today. So we're kind of like, let's just get a guest on.
Very excited, incredible, inspirational woman.
Yeah, she
like
is.
many of our guests, but yeah, she's got a great story to tell.
Yes.
And the work that she's doing now for women. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we get to her, just a really quick one. But on a scale of 1 to a whole jar of Biscoff, how are you doing this week?
I'm good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm trying to think. I don't even think I've had the Biscoff out again.
Ooh.
No wonder they're not sponsoring us. We don't need them
know.
anymore.
Yeah. Literally, we never ever eat them anymore. They hate us.
Yeah, no, I've had a good week because I got to see Green Day, which
You
was
did,
been
yes.
on my bucket list. I don't want to talk too much about it because I will sob.
Yes.
The videos of me sobbing will come. I didn't mean to sob, but it's something that my dad and myself have had on our bucket list since I was 15.
Oh, wow.
And they've never been.
Love that.
Yeah, they weren't on tour for a long time, and then when they were on tour, they were in America, and then when they announced their UK tour, we bought tickets, and the world ended for 18 months. So, it was we waited, then got the tickets, and then we had to wait another 2 years. So it was
Fuck me.
extra special. And we went all the way to Glasgow. We stayed
Glasgow.
over, and it was just me and him, and we rocked out, bought all the merch.
Love that.
Drank lots of beer and completely rocked out and cried. I just cried all day basically because I was
Love
very
that.
emotional. And yeah, it was incredible. It was. We got in the car the next day to drive home, and we were like, "So, what now?"
Yeah.
We
What
were
do
like,
we look forward
we
to
were like,
next?
what? Yeah, what's on our bucket list now? And do you know what my dad said?
Go on.
He said, because I was like, oh, I'd like to go to Glastonbury, but I was like, there's no big musical things that I'm like got on my bucket list.
Yeah.
You know, for artists to see. I've been very lucky to see the artists I've seen. So that was my final one from the bucket list. And he was like, right, he said, on my bucket list, he was like, I want to see you play at Glastonbury. He was like, that's now on my bucket list. And I was
You're
like,
like,
oh,
okay.
Dad.
I'll do that. For
It was
you.
like, doesn't have to be a main stage. I was like, okay, chill. You don't need
Okay.
to say that. Just
Headlining.
It was like, I'm
absolutely.
just saying it could be, you know, anything there. He was like, but that's what I'm going to come to see next. And I was
Love
like,
that.
all right, I'm on it. Don't you worry. So yeah, so we've had a lovely little time. So yeah, no Biscoff.
No
Only
Biscoff.
if I was having like a cake or
Yeah.
I've eaten a lot of shit. Let me
Pleasure
tell you, for
Biscoff.
the past 2 days. So yeah, no.
Great,
Pleasure
love
Biscoff
that.
was So yeah, but on a scale of 1 to a whole jar, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, no Biscoff apart from on pleasure cake. I've literally had an email about 4 seconds before we pressed record that says I'm going to be supporting the Hoosiers.
Woo! As if you didn't tell me that. Sorry,
literally, like,
headphone
you know,
users.
you know my face when I was literally like, let us press record. Okay, fuck, what does playback mean? Fuck, okay, yeah, great. Yeah, I'm doing Penfest in a few weeks, and I've just got an email to say I will be supporting the Hoosiers, direct support.
Woohoo!
So I'm literally
away
like,
from the
I'm not.
microphone, but woohoo!
I'm like, oh, okay, I need to kind of sort that all out. You know, one of them like, oh, okay, I don't need Biscoff because I'm buzzing, but I'm probably going to get a job while I sort out my band. You know, that kind of Biscoff.
Amazing.
So
Oh, babe, I'm so
that's really
proud of
exciting.
you.
Literally
Yay!
just got that little email then, which is quite nice. So,
Yay.
yeah, life is pretty good. I'm going to go out for a little drink this evening
Ooh.
with some friends in London town.
What
And,
friends? I'm your only friend. How dare you?
Aaron, mate. Aaron Foster. I don't even know if you listen to this, but...
Oh, I'll let you off then. We love Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron. So I'm very excited to...
Oh.
I'm going to go and like have like a little grin on of like, I'm celebrating and none of you know that I'm celebrating. So,
Yay.
but yeah. So
Well,
look,
cheers to you. Have a shot for
Thank
me.
you.
Have a pint of port for me.
I'll have a pint of port for
Yeah.
both of us. That'd be
A
lovely.
little inside joke.
We love a pint of port.
Yeah.
And Shoreditch bars that give us a pint of port instead of a glass of wine. But,
We asked for a glass of red wine. We received a pint. Yeah, a small. Yeah,
small
we
glass of red.
received 2 pints of port. We were very drunk, as you can imagine.
Hammered.
Yeah. So
anyway,
so with a good all in all, which is even better
day.
to now invite this incredible woman on. So
yes, we're gonna let Natasha in the room, doing this via Zoom, guys. So here we go. Hello.
Hi there.
We have our incredible guest, Natasha.
Hello.
Hi, Natasha.
Hello.
How are
I feel like I
you?
should have done jazz hands then. I feel like I missed out on something. Never mind.
Well, you could say that you did jazz hands because unfortunately.
Yeah. Just do that. Yeah, no, I totally did jazz hands. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
There's your mental image for everyone listening.
How are you doing, Natasha? I mean, you have just filled us in on got some very poorly children, but how are you doing apart from that?
Yeah, apart from that, I'm fine. Had a reaction to a vaccine I had last week, pneumococcal, of which I told my 10-year-old and his friend who stayed over Friday night, and they just said pneumococcal for the next 12 hours.
Yeah,
and laughed.
That's a fun word. Yeah.
Pneumococcal. And I was like, for God's sake.
Well, Natasha, please, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself. And I mean, Nat and I are fascinated with everything that you're doing. Obviously, active campaigner, and you work alongside Refuge. But tell us a little bit about yourself and your story and how this all became.
Okay, so when I was 17, I met a man who went on to wage war with my body and mind. Oh. Within a matter of weeks, I was isolated from my family. I changed my phone number. I was no longer modelling or selling horses. I basically disappeared off the face of the earth. Oh, wow. All under the guise of that he loved me. He wanted to protect me. He didn't live near my parents. I couldn't drive. My parents didn't take care of me. My friends were trying it on with him. My male friends wanted to sleep with me. If I travelled with work, then it was dangerous. There were dangerous predatory people in the industry. I mean, yeah, we know that's true, but irregardless, the pressure being put on me was not fair to him, and there was so many different things. And I just completely fell under his spell. I was vulnerable. I was impressionable. And the more my friends sort of went, are you sure this is right? He's 14 years older than you. This is all a bit weird. You're building a career. You're trying to... And I just sort of pushed them away and were like, you're trying to ruin my life, because he fully got in there. Mm-hmm. The term love bombing wasn't a thing then. So it didn't cross my mind. Yeah. And, time went on and things became normal. The way he became was normal.
Was your normal, yeah.
And I remember wanting to go out once and him being like, no, why wouldn't you want to stay in with me? People only go out to get laid. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to do that. And he was like, well, there we go then. And I remember I was going to go meet my mum at the train station, and it was like a 5-minute walk from where we lived in West Sussex. And so I'm going to take the Doberman, I'm going to walk to the station. He was like, no, you're not. And I was like, well, yeah, I am. And he was like, no, you're not. And he got his phone, he turned it around, and he went, because if you do, I will send this picture to your parents and show them what a little slut you are.
Oh my God.
And it was an intimate image of me. And it was like somebody had thrown a bucket of cold water over me. I was just like, holy shit, And I just remember going, okay, and needless to say, I didn't go.
Yeah. And
things like that became the norm. But the most dangerous thing about the 8 years I ended up spending there was that actually people using the term domestic violence, and because he wasn't punching me in the face like you see in a soap, I didn't feel like I had the right to claim I was being abused.
Yeah.
Then I fell pregnant on the pill. And I remember being 8 weeks pregnant and cupping my stomach and being like, we can do this, we can do it on our own if we need to, blah, blah, blah. So something must have gone on. And yet it took me until she was almost 6 to be able to leave.
Wow.
Yeah. So, that's like 6.5 years.
What was he like with your daughter?
I mean, through my pregnancy, he routinely starved me. He withheld water. He had me sit in a van, drive up and down the country, like from like West Sussex up to Aberdeen Airport and back again. And I wasn't allowed to sleep in the van. So if I started to go to sleep, he would wake me up or shake me awake or deliberately swerve the van, smack my head off the window.
Oh my God.
I wouldn't be allowed to take like a blanket or a pillow to get comfortable. I remember being pregnant and laying on top of a bomb casing, a big munitions casing that he'd moved for a big military company down in Portsmouth, BAE Systems, and he'd taken it up to, I'm going to say Rosyth maybe, and he was in a Transit Connect, and he made me lay on top of this. It was December, absolutely freezing cold
Jesus.
metal case, and
God.
try and sleep. He knew I was lactose intolerant, so he'd stop at the services and he'd buy himself, say, a cheeseburger and a milkshake, knowing I couldn't eat any. So the day that I fell pregnant, he'd quit his job a couple of weeks before, and he was doing airport runs, and it had got to, so he was going from West Sussex up to Gatwick, up to Heathrow, and then back again and back again, kind of taxiing aircraft parts. And I'd been up all day and all night, and it got to about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, take me fucking home. Take me home. I'm exhausted. I was a week overdue. He took me home. I got up at 7, went to the loo, wiped, and there was blood. So first baby, he'd cut ties with my mum. I panicked. I phoned the midwife, and the midwife was like, sweetheart, don't worry. It's totally normal. It's probably just a show. You know, it's one of those things. Don't worry. The baby's probably coming. Just rest. Get yourself some food, blah, blah, blah. She went, unless it's like an egg cup, we're not worried. And I was like, okay. And I stood up, walked to the bedroom, and it was like somebody had just upended a jug, and it went up the walls, all over the bed, everything. And I was just like, So I phoned my mother-in-law, who told me I was only having a baby, and calmed down. Phoned the midwife again, and she was like, we're sending an ambulance. He wouldn't let me go in an ambulance. I had to wait until he was home from his last one at Gatwick. I had to clean up the mess, clean myself up.
Oh my God.
I told the hospital that it was because I needed to clean myself up. That's what it was. I didn't want to come into the hospital dirty. We got in the car, went to the hospital. They put me on nil by mouth. They gave me a drip induction, but forgot to give me an epidural or any other pain relief. The anaesthetist came in after like 4 or 5 hours and was like, how's your back going? And I was like, what? And I moved my legs, and he was like, and I was like, yeah, no, dude, seriously. And anyway, we got 12 hours in to me being on a drip induction. He'd gone home in this time and told me not to have the baby whilst he was gone, which obviously was like, you know, everybody listening. Yeah, you cross your legs, girls. That's all you do. Just cross your legs, mindset, total mindset. You know, like, I'm not going to have the baby now. Yeah, exactly. And so I was just like, right. And he came back, and all of a sudden they lost a heartbeat. And I was like, and the whole room exploded. There were midwives, there was a consultant surgeon, there was an anaesthetist, and she literally got down between my legs and was like, look, Natasha, I've got to do a cut, and I've got to want who's deliver her. So basically suck her out with a plunger. Fine, go crazy, do you girl, get that baby out. So they got her out. She screamed the second they got her out, which was, you know, turned out she'd wiggled the probe off her head. Should have known then I was going to have a lifetime of crap from her, because, you know. And yeah, they put this baby in my arms. I wasn't maternal, never ever wanted kids, had only ever sort of, I remember once one of my mum's friend go on, hold the baby. And I was like, if you give me the baby, I'm not going to take it. And she let the baby go, and I didn't take it. I mean, she grabbed the baby before the bottom of the floor, but she acted like it was a me problem. I was like, mate, I told you I was not touching your sprog. Let us level here, okay? Don't put your little midget in my hands. I do not want it. So anyway, they put this baby in my arms, and I looked down and I was like, I made that. And his first words were, don't just stare at it, shut it up, and walked out the room. And the midwife put her hand on my arm and went, oh, sweet pea, I think he was going to cry. And I was like, no, he fucking wasn't.
Yeah, it was.
But no medical professional there thought that it might be
yeah.
prudent to check. So I went home the following day. He invited all the neighbours over, and they were like, "Oh, we're so happy for you." And obviously his ex-wife was the worst woman in the world, who'd run away with his daughter and not let him see his daughter, but now he could see his daughter, and it was this whole big thing. She was 8 when I met her. You know, it's ridiculous, if I'm honest. You know, all this, and I was like, oh my God, she's an awful mother, and that, not ever thinking that it was a case of manipulation.
Yeah, of course.
And he acted like the perfect dad, yet behind closed doors he didn't touch her, feed her, dress her, make her feed, do anything. He was always sorry, he was always in and out of jobs, because he said that I was a slut and he had to keep an eye on me.
Oh my God.
And then we moved to Horsham, also in West Sussex, closer to Gatwick. We moved to Horsham and he started working as a Hermes courier. And he would strap my daughter into the car for like 6 hours a day because I had to go with him. So I wasn't allowed to stay at home. I had to get up. I used to type all the postcodes off of the handheld terminal. I had to type them all in individually. So like 160 when he had 2 rounds, for example.
Oh, Jesus.
Then I would have to AA Route Planner optimize it. Then I printed that off. Then I would go back through that list and hand write the numbers next to each of the parcels. Then I would scan all the parcels and stack them in order from this list. And then I'd put them all in the car for him whilst he sat there and drank coffees and got the daughter ready. And then I'd put my daughter Darcy
did his job for
into
him,
the
went
car.
to work,
yeah, and then he got out and delivered them because I wasn't allowed to go to doors, but I had to sit there and hold the piece of paper for him.
What the fuck?
Oh, mate.
Yeah. Then I found out I was pregnant again. And I remember standing at the top of the stairs in the house thinking I could throw myself from top to bottom.
Oh God.
Because I was like, I don't know how I can bring another child into this. I don't know how can I do this to another child. My daughter had already become not my daughter, but my best friend.
Yeah.
I spoke to her like an adult. I treated her like an adult. You know, it was as much as raising her as a daughter. She was like, we saw nobody. We had no friends, no family. And any friends that we did have were like a couple of month things, and then they were gone again. And it was any time he thought he was losing control. And it just, you know, through that pregnancy, he was the same. The day I went in to have my son, I had mucked out a horse, his horse. He'd sold my horse as soon as I found out I was pregnant, but he kept his horse, even though he wasn't horsey. Mucked out a horse, taken my daughter to preschool for the morning, done a sponsored walk with her around the field, done a weekly shop, stacked all the parcels that morning, done all the cleaning that I had to do. And at about 5:30, I went to him and I said, look, East Surrey Hospital is a good 45 minutes away and my contractions are 50 seconds apart. And he went, are you doing this on purpose? He was like, you know it's fucking rush hour. I was like, dude, the baby's 10 days overdue. Like, needless to say as well that I was giving birth alone because he wouldn't let anybody look after our daughter and his mum refused to leave her dog to do it.
Oh, my
so God. I went to her response was, women have been giving birth for thousands of years. You're not special.
Wow.
I was like, all right then, bitch.
Yeah.
That's how it's going to be.
Sure.
So went to hospital and in came the like campest gay midwife ever. And he came in and was literally jazz hands like, hey! And I was like, oh my God, I love him. I was like, I love him. And he came over and my ex was like, he's not touching you. And I was like, yes, he fucking is. I'm having a baby. Get away from it, you know, because he was a gay man. Dirty.
Oh, wow.
Oh, for fuck's
And I was
sake.
like, fucking grow up. Like, get a grip. I don't care as long as you're a good human. I don't care who you are, what you look like, as long as you don't hurt other people. You can come from anywhere. You can have as much money or as little money as you like. I do not care. But please be a good human, you know?
Yeah, don't be a dick.
Yeah, don't be a dick. As long as you're like, my dad raised me going, basically, you don't judge somebody on where they come from, what they sound like, what they've got, what they look like. You judge them on whether or not they're a twat. And I live by that still. I mean, I also throw in and whether or not they've got good shoes because I'm like, I can't, you know, but you know, that's a whole other story. But
also this guy's going to help you get that bloody baby, so we can do what
so
you need to do,
yeah,
babe.
I'm like, get the baby out with jazz hands, babe. Come on. So anyway, he leaves with my daughter. My daughter maintains to this day that they drove the 45 minutes home and my ex made her sleep on the floor next to our bed.
What? Why?
Which, considering after I left, I found out in court paperwork that he was a convicted sex offender who raped a child under the age of 13 before I met him, and he only got 200 hours community service for it.
What?
I'm kind of glad.
Fuck.
But we'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah,
So,
that was definitely a bomb we need to.
Oh yeah. There's a lot. So
Oh
I'm
God.
there. I have the baby in an hour and 25 minutes. Absolutely fantastic. Guy was so calm. He said, "I'm going to give you another cut and some stitches down below. Is that okay?" I went, "Yeah, that's fine." He went, "Baby's out. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Right, let's get you on a ward." So I texted him and I said, "Your son's here. Family, long-awaited sons, like 7 granddaughters that they don't see apart from my one because all of the 3 sons are abusive."
Oh my God.
Oh, it's the long-awaited grandson. He went, "Great, get your stuff. You're coming home."
What?
"No, I've lost quite a lot of blood." And he was like, "Yeah, who will do the parcels in the morning?" I was like, "But Darcy's asleep." He was like, "I don't care. I'll wake her up."
Oh gosh.
So
You
half
just
one
had
in the
bloody
morning,
stitches.
Yeah.
Jesus.
1:30 in the morning, he comes into the hospital. The midwife makes me have a bath because the whole way through labour, all I do is moan that I'm dirty and I need to have a wash.
Oh.
Because it's just the grubbiest feeling. And
Yeah.
we go, the midwife even pushes me in a wheelchair to the car going, "Are you sure you want to do this, sweetheart?"
Oh
and I'm
my
like,
gosh.
yeah, it's fine. Get in the car, go home.
Oh my God.
As we get in the car, the midwife leans forward, God bless him, and he gives my daughter a Kinder Egg that he'd bought on his break. And he gave it to her and he was like, "That's for the best big sister for coming out at night."
Oh.
The
That's so
first
cute.
photo of my daughter with my son is hilarious. She is looking at him like I'm holding a dog turd on my arm. She's like, oh, honestly, the future picture, she's all like cuddly, but in that one picture, it's like
what is
1:30 in the
that?
morning, she's looking at him, she's like, "What the fuck is that?
Yeah.
You
That's
bring me a
amazing.
Cabbage Patch doll? That is not, it does nothing." I remember it going to me, "It doesn't do anything." I was like, "Well,
It's a baby.
okay." Still doesn't do anything, honey. He's 10. He just doesn't want to. But yeah, we went home and she'd fallen asleep with a Kinder Egg half eaten, and she put her hand on our like 700 quid Alfa Romeo door, and he went absolutely mental. And we got in the house and he screamed at her from the top of the stairs, "We already love the new baby more than you." He threw in a couple of C words as well, but so I settled our 3.5-year-old, and by this point he's in bed and the baby's in bed, and I'm like, I haven't slept in coming up 24 hours.
Yeah.
Crawl into bed, lay down, and then he decided it would be a good time to rape me and rip my stitches. And I remember the next day literally saying we had a separate toilet to the bathroom, and I literally remember clutching the wall with blood coming out of me like I had a tap on, and being like, "What the fuck am I going to do? I cannot go to a midwife and say this has happened. What am I going to do?" I didn't sit down for like 3 weeks.
Oh, babe, I'm
So
sorry.
Needless to say, I got through it and it became normalised. I remember in Crown Court, the defence barrister going to me, "You use the term normalised a lot for a victim. Has it been put in your head?" I was like, "No, I lived my life like it was normal for 8 years, buddy. You good? You're good."
Oh, God.
And I knew I needed to leave. And it
Yeah.
got till, so my son was born in 2012. And it got, by this point we were married. We got married when my daughter was 5 months old. He got his decree absolute from his ex-wife and he booked our wedding the same day. The first available slot. I got married in a £7 dress that if I breathed in, it fell down because I was so thin. And we literally got married and went home again. And, you know, still at that point, I was like, I'm not being abused because it's violence. And although he pushes me into wardrobes and he chokes me and he kicks me, and sometimes he chokes me until I'm unconscious and he wakes me up having sex with me, and I can lay there and go, "Please don't touch me, get off me, I don't even want you near me," and he carries on, I'm not pushing him off. Rape is Jack the Ripper down an alleyway, but my Jack the Ripper sat across the breakfast tables from me and asked me why I had a face on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it got to 2014, I knew I needed to leave, and I emailed West Sussex 101 incident room saying I needed officers to attend the following Thursday because my mum told me that's when she could come and pick me up. I didn't realise my mum was being beaten, literally beaten senseless on a daily basis by her partner, not my dad, but by her partner
Oh my
at that
God.
point. So I was like, okay. So the police turned up, and I remember mouthing to this young officer over the shoulder of the other officer, just going, I'm not ready. And they jumped into action and were just like, oh, can we separate you? Can we have a chat? And I remember this officer begging me to leave, and he was amazing, but he never signposted me anywhere. So when he left, I still felt like I was in the same thing. He even attended the following Thursday when I left. So I got in the car, he went to sign on my ex. So I got in the car, 4 police officers attended because he had a history of attacking police. Got in the car, off we went. Got to my mum's. He didn't know where my mum lived because I hadn't spoken to my mum in 3.5 years. She hadn't even met Thomas, which is my son. And within 3 days, my mum's partner had invited him down to stay with us, and then they pissed off to the New Forest for a week.
What?
And so I ended up going back. And yeah, it was just like, and we went back, and I remember by this point I had a Facebook, I'd set up a magazine, but I was also like making crafts online to make more money, because he was always quitting his job, which he was fine with. And this lady that I knew through Facebook, that was my friend, who was no threat to him, so that was allowed. I remember texting her and going, she lived like up in Norfolk, and I was like, I've made the worst mistake I've ever made. I never should have come back. And that was the morning after I went back. So that was August. It was our wedding anniversary. So it was August 15th, 2014. And I knew from August 16th that I needed to leave still. And it took me until January the 16th, 2015.
Wow.
So I have no teeth from here back, if you can see.
Oh,
nothing,
wow.
Absolutely nothing. I had 8 teeth removed last year, 6 in one go, and then the 2 wisdoms individually. Because I wasn't allowed to see a dentist, because I was a slut who used to giggle with them.
What?
I once had an abscess at Christmas. I can't recall if it was the Christmas before I left or the Christmas before that, but I had an abscess that spread to my jawbone. He wouldn't even let me have paracetamol, and I had to basically drink cold soup through a straw for 2 weeks until it went down. I think that's probably the closest to insanity I've ever come, being in that sort of pain constantly.
Fuck.
And I lived like that constantly.
It sounds like a hostage
Yeah.
situation, like that you were in.
Yeah.
Like,
I lived a lockdown before lockdown was a thing.
yeah.
That's why I understood what women were going through, you know.
Jeez.
And that Christmas, I remember one of the real tipping points was I needed a new pillow. And we lived like a 10-minute walk from Tesco. And I was like, it was Christmas Eve. I'd been called a slut all the way back from the town because men had apparently looked at me. By this point, he had me dressing like a 40-year-old woman or a 15-year-old girl. There was no in between. And he wouldn't let me go and get this pillow. And I was like, at a point where I was like, why can't I want to go to the supermarket and buy a pillow. You're being ridiculous. I'm going on my own. And he called the kids downstairs, and he was like, kids, mummy's running away, and all this sort of thing. And the kids started crying. And I remember anyway, I walked away from him, and he went, you fucking slut, or you fucking whore. And Darcy at 5 turned around and went, don't you call my mummy that. And he went nose to nose with her and screamed in her face that he'd call me what he wanted to. And that was the moment where it hit me that if I didn't do something, my kids were either going to grow up and think that behaviour was acceptable, or they were going to perpetrate it, and I couldn't work out which was worse.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so I knew I needed to leave. And January 15th, I remember Googling signs of domestic abuse, because I'd heard the term.
Did that. Yeah.
And I remember looking through and seeing Refuge's website and all the things that constituted, and I was like, check, you know. And I just was like, right. And I phoned the helpline. And at the time I didn't know. I remember looking out the window thinking, shit, if he comes back, because by this point he was delivering like courtesy cars for like a big dealership, a car dealership. So he'd take the car to the MOT person, bring the car for MOT back, and vice versa. And he used to turn up multiple times a day. I think like 18 was the record that he turned up in a day, that he'd just drive on the drive, walk in the door and go, how many times you hoovered today? Twice. Do it again. Okay. You know, what you're doing, where you're going.
Constantly just make sure you were there and doing what you were supposed to do.
And I was like, right. And I was phoning them, and I was like, oh my God, oh my God, you know, I didn't know. I felt like they might be like, we're going to send a SWAT team. I felt like they were going to be like, we might, like, I just didn't know, not a literal SWAT team, but you know, you just didn't know. Were they going to send loads of police officers? Was it going to be out of my control? I didn't know what to do. And
you just don't know.
The woman that answered the phone to me saved my life. And I'm not emotional about any of this process. But the idea of being able to sit in a room and show that woman my wedding photos now, and my kids, my 3 kids, and my farmhouse in the middle of nowhere with my horses and my cats and my dog and all the things that I've achieved makes me really emotional, because she should know that she saved my life. She doesn't even remember my call, I bet, but I remember. You know, and it was just huge. And she said to me, she didn't say you should leave. She said, what do you think you should do? And she said, did you know you can make an appointment at a police station? Because I wanted a non-molestation order because I was leaving the following week again. And I didn't. So I phoned 101, and the lady I spoke to was amazing. She said, yes, you can. Do you feel in danger now? And I played it down. I said, no, I just, you know. And I made an appointment for the next day. So I morphed into perfect wife. And I remember in court, the defence barrister being like, well, you said he didn't rape you the night before you left, but he raped you 2 nights before you left. Bit strange. And I went, no, I slept with him willingly the night that I left to keep everything as normal as I could. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to turn around and be like, yeah, he did it all the time. That night, I just got on with it because I needed to get out and I needed to survive.
I mean, like, the irony, is it irony that you're saying like you slept with him willingly? It's not really willingly.
It's not willingly, but you know what I mean. But I'm not going to allege it was rape when I, you know.
But the fact that the barrister is just like, but it's not.
Oh, I'll get to some of the things the barrister said. I'll get to a few of those. They are real crackers. So my life could literally be some sort of movie because it sounds so made up. It's ridiculous. So the next day, I don't know if anybody knows Horsham, but it's got a huge park on it, and it's sort of the towns on one side, and then there are council offices, and then on the other side there's this road with like the police, the law courts, a library, fire station, hospital. Like, that's it on that road. And I took my daughter to school, took my son to preschool, went to go to the town, turned around, and he was there. Because by this point I was allowed out to take the kids to school and stuff and not be checked on. And I was like, he was like, where are you going? What you got your bag for?
Oh God.
And he used to like to play eeny miny mo with our bills. So he would just pick which ones we weren't paying that month so he could spend the money on whatever. And I went, we haven't been paying the council tax and we're going to get in a lot of trouble. So I've got to go down. And he was like, okay, I'll take you. And I was like, and he drove me down in this courtesy car, and I was like, I don't think I'm supposed to be in here because I'm insured. And he was like, yeah, don't worry about it. And I'm like, and he's going on about how I'm sleeping with somebody from Greggs because he saw a Greggs cup in the bin at home from when I'd been in the town the last time, because he used to like me to go and get my nails done in the Asian nail bar so he could go in and talk to all the Asian women who were like, oh, he's so lovely. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, oh my God, there's a fly here. It's so annoying. Sorry. I'm like, bless you. But yeah, so, oh my God, it landed on my face. What was that even about? I'm so sorry. Like, what? The front of it.
This is why we need to do these videos, because that was hilarious.
I'm going to get hairspray. I'm literally going to get some hairspray. You're just going to hear in the background.
Like, yeah.
So I'm thinking, shit. I'm like, I'm not sleeping with everybody in Greggs because you know what? They're all women, but whatever. So I get to the council offices and I walk in and he's still in the parking space, and I'm like, please don't wait. I'm like, if there is a God, I'm not religious, please don't wait. I'm like, please. And the woman looked at me and I was like, she's like, hi. And I was like, can I sit down a minute, please? And she was like, yeah, of course. And I sat down and he reversed out. And I just remember standing up, shouting thank you, and running for my life.
Wow.
Now, anyone who knows me knows that I run for only 2 reasons: if something's chasing me, or if there are nice shoes on offer. And there were no shoes in sight this day. And I genuinely ran for my life.
Bless you.
And I got to Hurst Road and I realised that as soon as I stepped out on that main road, there was a 50-50 chance that he was going to drive back to the council offices once he'd picked up the MOT car.
Yeah.
Or he was going to go straight back. He'd either drive past the council offices to look at me, or to get back and get another car to come and pick me up, he would drive down Hurst Road, and if he saw me on Hurst Road, there was absolutely no reason for me to be there other than he'd know I was going to the police station.
Yeah.
I got in the police station and I was like,
Breathe,
and I hadn't, looking back, I really hadn't thought it through, because what was I going to do? I was going for a non-molestation order, and then I was going to go home and act normal, was I?
Yeah.
And the officer was talking to me, and he was scrolling on the screen, just looking really discomforted, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he was like, Natasha, is there anything else you want to tell me? And it all just came tumbling out.
Yeah.
Oh,
And he
bless
just
you.
stood up and went, you've taken this out of my hands. I've got to go and get a RASO officer, so rape and serious sexual offences officer.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time, my ex knew something was up, and he managed to get hold of my kids from
Oh,
school and
God.
preschool.
Oh my God, man.
They lost him.
Oh, my God.
We were sat there on the phone to control. the RASO was on the phone to control, and he was a bit of a, bless him, lovely, but a bit of a chilled wet blanket. And the original officer who was with me, thank God, was actually mates with the officer who was driving around looking for my ex. So he phoned him.
Wow.
And I remember this guy, his name was Ben, and I remember this guy was like, looking, I haven't seen, wait, I found him. And you just heard the car doors go bing, 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 bing. And I just remember that was the longest time of my life. It was probably only about 10-15 minutes, but
yeah, of course, kids.
Yeah. And they took my kids to an almost virtual stranger who turned on me afterwards, because she said she didn't know how I could put my children through that day.
Oh my God.
I still have a letter from the lady who runs the Montessori nursery from where I was that said that she didn't believe, she always saw me and my husband together, and she didn't believe anything, and that no mother would drop her children off and put them through what I put them through that day.
See, people like that are part of the fucking problem.
Absolutely, they are. So
right.
I hope she's seen the work I've done, and I hope she feels thoroughly ashamed of herself.
Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
hope she's learned some
She's supposed
lessons.
to, well, she's supposed to safeguard children, so let's hope she's a bit better at it now.
Yeah.
So, you know, then I went to the Saturn unit at Crawley Hospital, which was where I was basically put on a mortuary slab and taken photos of at every single angle by people in plastic gloves. And I remember the biggest show of humanity that day was the nurse going home on her lunch break to get me a charger for my phone.
Wow.
Because my phone was going to die, and she lived a couple of roads away, and she went home and got me a charger so I could charge my phone. It was so kind of her. And my mum and her partner still didn't know what was going on, came and picked me up. And on the way back, Darcy said, Mum, are we going to go and get the stuff from the car? I was like, sweetheart, we don't have a car. Mummy made sure it was repossessed a few months ago. She was like, no, the car up Sullington Mead, which was the road opposite. So we had a double width driveway, and he stole a car from work that they didn't know about. And he parked it up a side road, and inside it was their passports, changing bag, anything he thought of value from the house, like handbags or cameras or anything. The company he worked for were exceptional. They literally paid for a locksmith to come out on a Saturday and buckle the door of a brand new Ford Focus. Literally bent it in half because the guy didn't have the skeleton keys. He bent it in half so he could get his arm in. It was absolutely lovely. I remember him going, I don't think I can do this. And I went to him, look, this is the situation. He went, okay, love, I'm going to get in, come hell or high water. And I was like, thank you.
Jesus.
Went to my mum's. The second he got out, he withdrew all the money from our bank account.
Oh my God.
I had like £2.30 to my name. I had 2 kids, 2 carrier bags. I'd brought 2 cats and 2 dogs with me because I knew he'd kick them around the house and perhaps kill them, because I used to get between him and his German Shepherd before she died when he used to kick her in the ribs around the kitchen. Don't know how many kicks I took for that. I was grateful when she died. Does that sound terrible? I was actually genuinely grateful when she passed away in her sleep. I was like, thank fuck, because I didn't protect her enough as it is. It's probably the biggest guilt I have, apart from towards my kids. That's the biggest guilt I have, that dog lived like that.
That's not a hero. That's
like to a point where I locked her in the out room with the garden because I didn't want her in the house because if she was out of sight, she was out of mind. So I made sure she had big fluffy beds and that, and she just lived in basically like a little lean-to conservatory thing that you walk through to get to the back garden, because that way she was safe and I knew she was okay. I know he dumped my cat twice. First time he went back and got her. Second time he didn't. I know he dumped other dogs. He bought me a puppy, then he sold it. My daughter wasn't allowed in the lounge, neither was my son, because it was messy. So they had to eat and play in the kitchen and watch TV in the kitchen, because that was his space with cream carpets, etc. They weren't allowed on the grass in the garden. They were only allowed on the patio where the dog fouled.
What?
It was ridiculous. Yeah. And
oh my God.
he got out and he immediately started stalking me. And then I remember the police saying to me, "Don't go out on your own." And I was like, "Sorry?" They were like, "Just please don't go out on your own." He had a restraining order from Portsmouth and stuff like that. And then I realised that my mum's partner was beating the shit out of her. And he started tapping me up for money to buy alcohol. And I was like, no. I was like, do you realise I've sorted benefits and stuff like that? And I need to keep my head above water. I've got to build up to even buy. I have nothing to my name, absolutely nothing. And it escalated in a massive argument. And I turned around and I was like, I don't know who you think you are. I left. I went into Refuge. Again, 2 kids, 2 carrier bags. One of the girls that I'm good friends with now still remembers me walking up the drive holding a pair of Jimmy Choos in one hand and a bottle of coffee syrup in the other hand, and she was like, "Oh my God." And it really taught me. We weren't rich or anything like that, but it was stuff I'd managed to hold on to or whatever, you know. And I just remember being like, all of these women here have all been through such different paths to me, but they're the same as me. Like, we have a bond. We have some of them have been through horrific things still. Some of them have got clear. Some of them haven't. Some of them I've lost touch with because I don't think they ever will, but I'm always here for them and I'll always sort whatever problem I can. My position's different now than it used to be. So I will bend over backwards because I'm a voice for all of us, you know? I got told I was in Refuge for 9 months. I was like, no. My son's being eaten alive by bed bugs. It wasn't a refuge-run refuge. It was a privately run refuge. And I was like, my son's being eaten alive by bed bugs. There is no hope in hell that I am staying here 9 months. I went to the council and they were like, as long as you don't get this one woman, you're good. Who did I get? The one woman. So I sat down and I was like, I need your help. And she was like, everyone needs my help. And I was like, okay. I was like, okay. I was like, okay, let me level. If I lived in a house with bed bugs and I did nothing about it, social services would basically check me out for child neglect. And she was like, okay. I said, if I lived in a house where a woman was threatening to slit her wrists in the hallways every night, causing the police to have to storm the refuge to drag her out and drag the knives off her, I'd be done for neglect if that was my partner or my sister or my mother. And she was like, yeah. I was like, we have been through hell. And I cannot heal my children if I cannot even have my mum over for a cup of tea. I have to build a home. They got me on the housing list. I got housed within 5 weeks of going into Refuge. I had my home within 3 weeks, but they needed to retile and reinstall a boiler in my flat. When I left, Refuge offered me a kettle or a toaster. I was like, wow. Didn't occur to me that when you leave Refuge, you leave with nothing. I'd been going to Argos, and Argos have an amazing clearance section, literally buying curtains for like £2.50 and bedspreads for £5 and things, literally, you know. And if it wasn't for my friend who I told, that the one that was on Facebook, if it wasn't for Lily giving me £500 when she sold her house and moved, I wouldn't have been able to buy my kids' beds.
Wow.
Oh, bless you.
But I remember moving into my flat and I couldn't put carpets down, so instead I bought all the clearance rugs that Argos have. And I remember the manager of Argos in Portsmouth giving me the stuff that was going to go in the skip for other girls in the Refuge.
Oh, wow.
So, like, you know, like if a lampshade gets returned because it has a little mark on it, or all those really silly things, aside from electrical stuff, which he obviously couldn't, all the stuff that was going to go in the bin, or curtains that had been opened but couldn't be repacked and stuff, he was just like, take it all. I remember I actually got like a a Vauxhall Vivaro size taxi to take it all back for me, and we had to dump it in the middle of the street because obviously the taxi couldn't go to the Refuge. And I remember the Refuge being livid with me over it. They were like, it's a fire hazard. I was like, you've got a massive storage shed out the back. They were like, it's not for you lot to store things in. I was like, it's fucking empty.
Wow.
Jesus.
Yeah, they were not. I remember when I ran in and said, I've got a house. I got the deputy of the house turned around and went, you're a fucking liar.
What?
And I went, I'm sorry. She was like, you haven't got a house. Yeah, honestly. I remember when I was going through family court and he was saying I was schizophrenic and bipolar and everything, and I went to the Refuge out of desperation and I said, can the house manager give me a reference? And they were like, no, we're not getting involved for you. And that was the email I had back, we're not getting involved for you.
Have you reported any of this?
Yeah,
Since,
absolutely.
Yeah, good.
Jesus.
But I was like, right, so I got in my flat, and I remember my first night, literally didn't have a sofa, didn't have a TV, didn't have anything, sitting on the floor and literally being like, I am fucking free.
Oh, babe.
Through the help and kindness of so many different people, people that I'd never even met. I'd never met Lily at this point, I might add. I remember getting something in the post, opening it up, and it was a TV that they'd literally taken off the wall in their conservatory so my kids could have TV. I met a Sky bloke in Cascades in Portsmouth, and I got chatting to him, and he was trying to get me to have Sky, and I was like, dude, I can't. And I explained, and he went, do you want my friends and family discount? I've got one left, and you can have it for £2.75 for 12 months. And he gave me that so my kids could have TV. I mean, he also wanted to get in my knickers because he texted me loads afterwards, but whatever.
Yes.
But even so, you know, there was so much
That's so
kindness.
lovely.
There was a lot of kindness from people. And then I was chatting to one of my columnists, because I ran an equestrian magazine at the time, and I was chatting to one of my columnists, and I was on a website, and we were basically trying to see like who would basically get the most comments. And this guy had messaged me and he said hi, and I was like, shit, can they see if you open it? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, oh my god, okay. And I replied to him, we got talking, and it turned out that his ex-wife had basically, like, he'd just managed to get rid of a narcissistic ex-wife, and he was just bored at home sort of thing. And I went, like, I'm coming off this app, it's killing my battery. And I don't know why, but because I was so guarded over my phone, I gave him my number.
Yeah.
And we got chatting every day about what I was going through and what he was going through, because she was pulling some really nasty stunts, and a lot of his friends were like, oh, you know, you may as well just stay with her. And he was like, you don't understand what she's like behind closed doors and stuff. And I was going down to see my friend in Devon, and he lived in Weston-super-Mare, and he was like, come by for that pizza, I've got a spare room, come by for that pizza, you know. And I remember going there, and he was like, I'm at the station, I'm waiting, you know. And I was like, okay, awesome. And by this point I was like, I have just the weirdest feeling about this guy. And we discussed it on the phone. We were like, we've never even met, but it's just weird. And I got off the train, and I can literally see it now. I stepped off, and it was like a film. Everybody was bustling past, and he was just stood on the edge of the platform, and he looked like he was going to faint. And he hugged me, and my heart was like, there you are. It was like the weirdest feeling of peace ever. And the next day, needless to say, I didn't stay in the spare room, but that's neither here nor there. But the next day, I very awkwardly waddled to the train station, very tired, very happy. And I remember my friend's dad going at dinner when I got there. He was like, why can't you sit on the chair properly? And my friend was like, because she stayed at a guy's house last night. And even now, her dad rips the shit out of me on Facebook for it. He's like, can you sit down now? Have you been married long enough? I'm like, oh my goodness.
Hilarious.
Honestly, it's like, oh. And I remember getting on the train and going and being like, I've left like an arm behind. It was really weird. So the next weekend I went down and saw him again, and I met some of his friends, and one of his neighbours basically told his ex-wife that I'd been there, and she started making it really difficult for him. And I said to my mum, my mum had left her ex because he'd beat her up, so she'd fled with my sister.
Great.
And I said, oh mum, can you watch the kids again? Because I'd helped to get house, she didn't work or anything. And she was like, no, you'll have to split up with him, won't you?
What?
I was like, what? And I phoned him in floods of tears, and I was like, it's over. And he was like, what do you mean? I was like, well, Mum won't watch the kids. You're in Somerset. I can't come and see you.
Oh.
And he was like, because his ex had taken the car, and he had a car that was
Yeah.
having work done on it, but it needed an MOT. And he was like, I'll hire a car and come down. He went, you have male friends that the kids meet, so why can't I just be your male friend? I don't understand.
Aw.
And so he turned up, and Darcy, who was really cautious of men, just jumped on him. I've got this picture of him about 10 seconds after he walked in with my dog this side and Darcy the other side. And he's like, you know, and my dog used to bark at every man. All my male friends that nip round to help with anything, he would just bark, 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 bark. And he didn't bark at Ben. He just jumped up with Ben. And
Aw.
so he started coming every week. And we went to Windsor Horse Show because he was supporting my magazine. And I woke up to a message from somebody who worked with me going, John has emailed all your columnists telling them that you're a psycho, that you've stolen all his money, that you're dangerous, that they shouldn't be associated with you, that you're going to get arrested. He's added everybody on Facebook. He's putting
What?
pictures of you on. He's telling everybody how much he loves you. He followed me on Twitter, then unfollowed me. He texted my mum going, hi, mum, how are you? And she was like, I don't think you should be texting me, do you? And he was like, sorry, wrong mum. He's never called my mum, ever.
Oh my God.
And the police did nothing. He breached bail so many times. And then
Jesus.
weekend after that, I went out with Ben and the kids to Marwell Zoo, and I came back and I walked into the kitchen and my plate just went crashing to the floor, and I had a minor stroke on my right side.
Oh my
Oh
God.
fuck.
And I lost the use of the right side, my right hand and the right side of my face for like 10 months.
Jeez.
And yeah, shit got harder.
Yeah.
And Ben went, your mum's not in any frame of mind to support you. You've got nothing in Portsmouth. I've got nothing in Weston-super-Mare. Let's move. He used to have a job. He trained to do a job that was, he basically worked for BT, and he trained to do a TSO engineer, and he basically got put as an OpenReach engineer, which was mugging him off basically.
Right.
So he went for a TSO up in the Derby, Nottinghamshire, Leicestershire patch, and he got it, which was an £8,000 pay rise. He took out a £12,000 loan. He paid off the debts from his wedding. He paid the deposit on a 4-bedroom new build house, and we all moved in together. We kitted the kids' bedrooms out with new beds and new toys, and made sure that they were happy. And we rebuilt our lives up in Nottingham. And we lived there for 5 years.
Yeah.
During which time my ex stalked us incessantly. He took our registration of our car when we went to family court, and then repeatedly reported us for child abuse. He had a lady on Facebook report us for child abuse, and the police actually phoned her when we were with her and were like, you're in Buckinghamshire? And she was like, so? He told me to call. He gave loads of intimate details about me to a woman in Scotland who went on to say that she was going to pour a kettle over my face,
Whoa.
find my house, stab me, kill me, blah, blah, blah. I was 5 months pregnant at this point. Ben told me he never wanted kids. And I said, well, I've got kids. There's not much I can do about it. And he went, my ex has put me off kids for life. I can deal with a ready-made family, but that's it, you know. And he jumped straight into being a dad. It was hard, but he was amazing. Yeah. And then he came home one day and he was all like, oh, can we talk once kids went to bed? What sort of thing is that to say to a woman?
Never say that. Never.
No.
Yeah, he knows that now. So anyway, he sits down, he's all quiet, he won't look at me, and I'm like, what's the matter? And he's like, I think if we don't have a child together, that I'll regret it for the rest of my life, but I need to know how you feel. I never have felt as good or as beautiful as I did when I was pregnant. And
yeah,
when
very
I
different
had
experience to the last two.
Absolutely. And when I had Henry, Ben was there. Henry got stuck. He had shoulder dystocia, but luckily they got him out in mere seconds, so there was no damage. And probably one of the most tender memories I have is me showering straight after having him and looking out of the shower to see Ben just holding this little baby and just grinning at me. And you know, I remember standing like after I got out the shower and getting him into his first little baby grow, and us both fumbling at this teeny tiny baby, and me realizing I'd never done it with someone before. And almost teaching Ben how to deal with these things. And I remember Henry wasn't even a week old, and I woke up and I was like, Jesus, it's 7 o'clock. He slept through the night. And then I realised a Moses basket was on Ben's side. And so Ben had got
Oh.
up and fed him.
Oh, which you completely not used to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Then when Henry was a month old, Ben proposed to me. I had a jeweler that I absolutely loved, and he sent me this picture of this absolutely gorgeous colour change sapphire, blue sapphire. And he was like, this is so rare, look at this. And I was like, wow, Isaac, that's amazing. And he was like, you can't afford it, but I knew you'd appreciate it. These come up once in a lifetime type thing. And I was like, oh, okay. And he went and Ben went, pick something from Isaac for your birthday, get him to make you a ring for your birthday. So I picked a low grade £150 sapphire, paid Isaac the money for it. Isaac carried on. And then I was feeling really upset because John was posting shit online, and I was sat there going, you know, we're here with two kids who sometimes have complete emotional meltdowns for what they've been through. My health is destroyed, and we're suffering, you know. And he basically, the postman came and he was really nervous. And I was like, you okay? And he was like, yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm all right. No, I'm actually all right. I am. And I was like, okay. And then he was like, I can cheer you up. And I was like, I doubt it. And he was like, no, I can. And he said, Isaac's parcel's come. And I was like, don't ruin my birthday present, because I've got a weird thing about my birthday as it is. John used to go out of his way to ruin it. He used to love to do stuff on my birthday. And he was like, no, just have a look. So in the end, he said, have a look. So I got this box and I opened it, and it was my Ceylon. And I was like, it's my ring. And he went, yeah, try it on. So I went to put it on my middle finger, and I was like, oh, Isaac, you idiot, it's the wrong size. And I looked up and Ben was sobbing, and we're sat on our sofa and he was sobbing, and he was like, I didn't tell you which finger to put it on.
Oh, that's so
And then he was like, will you marry me? And we cried a lot on the sofa. And you know, so many people I knew were vile. They were like, that's the best he could do, your sofa. And I was like,
Dad, shut up.
And Ben was like, I wanted to take you to Woollerton Park, which is a house in Woollerton Hall in Nottingham, and I love it. And you can go on this mezzanine and see for miles. And he was like, I wanted to take you up there on a private tour. I'd spoken to them and everything. He said, but I knew you would know. It was like, I would be such a nervous wreck. You would know the second we went. He went, so what was the point?
Yeah.
So, and it was perfect because we cried, and I wasn't self-conscious
cool.
about the people around me. And Darcy came down and was like, what's wrong? And I was like, nothing's wrong. Ben's asked me to marry him. And she was like, yay, Dad, you know, and gave him a hug. And she used to send him little letters, Ben, can I call you Dad? You know, and all that sort of thing. And we were being dragged through family court the whole time.
Yeah.
And then after 3 years, we got to trial.
Jesus.
I was cross-examined for an entire court day.
Oh my God.
During the cross-examination, I had questions such as, you were naked in bed. I was like, are you saying that implies consent? He was like, I'm not here to answer questions, or you're not here to ask questions. And the judge was like, answer her. And he was like, well, no, I'm not implying it. I went, you are implying it though.
Yeah.
He turned around and was like, you phoned the National Domestic Abuse Helpline but didn't mention rape. That's a bit unusual, isn't it? I was like, have you ever been raped? Do you know the humiliation of being raped? I was like, the head of Hampshire Police once described being raped as the single most serious crime a person can survive. How dare you? He read out a bunch of really nasty messages, and he said, do you agree that they're nasty? Yes. Abusive? Yes. All this sort of thing, threatening, blah, blah, blah. And he puffed up like a little pigeon and went, then why, Mrs. Saunders, did you send them? And I was like, if you look, you'll see that the defendant sent those messages. Awkward.
Wow.
Before that, I'd obviously got married, which was the most beautiful day of my entire life.
Good for you. Proud.
Except in my pictures, I look like I'm terminally ill because I'm so thin. I'm barely a size 4.
Oh, jeez.
If I breathe in, again, it's all on my Instagram. If I breathe in, well, you can see every bone on my chest. I'm so thin. I've put on 4.5 stone and I've never felt better. I grew boobs at 30. It was amazing. It took me till 30 to hit puberty. I'm constantly still. I'm now like, see my boobs? Have you seen them? They're great. And I've had 3 kids because I've had my kids first. They haven't gone anywhere. Do you know what I mean? So I'm like, oh, yeah. But, you know, I'd got married and stuff, and that had obviously provoked my ex. And then my ex had decided that I was sleeping with Ben in Weston-super-Mare all this time. And anyway, I got to the end of it, and the prosecution obviously does its redress, and they were like, oh, do you want to question her? And they were like, no. And I remember her telling me afterwards, she was like, if your testimony was the only testimony that stood, that would have been enough. And I was like,
Wow.
but it was because I went into that knowing that there was absolutely nothing wrong with me. The amount of women I meet, even when I'm talking at the Metropolitan Police and I've got new officers coming over in tears, sobbing on my shoulder, they are shocked when I go, has anybody ever told you that there is absolutely nothing wrong with you, my love? And they go, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're not a rapist. You don't beat women. Good people don't make other people miserable. There is nothing wrong with you. I had a guy at the last talk I did, he wasn't part of the Met. I think he was there talking in his own right. And he went, can I just ask what, you do for like your self-care? And I was like, buy shoes.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, I mean, like, to get over talking about this. I was like, have you ever fallen over or stubbed your toe or given birth or got married or passed your driving test? And he was like, and I went, they're all the same. This story is a story. It's happened to me. There is absolutely nothing to be gained by me being heartbroken by what happened to me. As much as what's happened to me is the very low of my life, I have had absolute pinnacles of my life, and I won't be affected by somebody else's actions. I refuse. He stole 8 years of my life. That motherfucker is not getting one more minute. I don't hate him. I pity him. Bless his heart. Bless his little fucking heart. Still going at it.
I guess a lot of your healing as well comes through the work that you do now as well. Because
I think a lot of my healing happened before I left. I had such a long time to come to terms with what was being done to me that by the time I left, it was literally like flicking a switch.
Wow.
That's amazing. Like,
I think the hardest part of what I do is people saying, like, thank you. And you get women who come to you and go, you saved my life. I'm like, let me stop you. You saved your life. You just heard me at the right time. Don't ever take away what you did. Because I don't save lives. So the person taking that step saves their life. When the verdict came in, he was found guilty of 3 out of 4 counts of rape and 1 of sexual assault by penetration. He was sentenced. It's interesting actually, because I gave evidence on International Women's Day 2018, so it's a really special day for me. And he was sentenced on May the 4th, so there were a lot of May the 4th be with you jokes. And he got sentenced for 12 years custodial, 3 on licence, and lifetime on the sex offenders register.
Wow.
Now you would think that was the end of it, but no.
Oh,
so we continued on. I approached Refuge and said, I need to make a change. I owe you my life. What can I do? I was in the Avon 60th anniversary brochure. I think I've been Avon Worldwide Woman of the Week as well. Somebody told me that the other week and I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, you're Woman of the Week. And I was like,
oh, that's cool.
I've done the UN initiative, the Peace One Day UN initiative. There's a video that they came to our house and filmed. You'll see all our lovely house and our horses and that. I've been on probably every major publication from Al Jazeera to other countries, all different other countries. I've been covered in all of our major tabloids and publications. Done a lot of live TV. I changed the law. I decided that somebody threatening to share your intimate images is just as violating.
Yeah, this was just last year,
wasn't
it?
Yeah. And they told me it would take 4 years. And with the help of my MP up in Rushcliffe, Ruth Edwards, who basically badgered ministers by WhatsApp for me, we did Zoom calls and they helped me change the law.
That's incredible.
I don't care what anybody says. Naked threat campaign. I don't care what anybody says about Vicky Atkins. I don't care what anybody says about Alex Chalk and his resignation yesterday. They listen to me. They remember me. I remember Vicky Atkins thanking me by name in Parliament the day we got royal assent, and I cried like a baby because it was just so. And then Ruth thanked me afterwards, and it was just. It's quite something to say to your kids. Your mum's name was mentioned in Commons, like I'm actually in dispatches. Can you even believe that? How insane is that?
Cool.
And I've had a lot of encouragement to become an MP. I have a lot of contact with the Home Office and stuff like that. I get a lot of abuse for it, I'm not gonna lie. Get a lot of arseholes, but I'm also like, I work with whoever. Exactly. And I'm like, you work with who you work with. Do you know what I mean? I started singing because I was trained to sing up until I was 16, and then he made me give it up because he told me my singing was absolutely atrocious. So I stopped doing it. So I forced myself, I think twice or 3 times in the past year. I've posted myself singing on my my Instagram to make myself get out of my comfort zone, because nothing gets
Good for
solved by staying
you.
in there.
Yeah.
I, you know, I refuse to be held back by what happened to me. I want my children to grow up to be good humans and know that they can change the world, whether that's showing somebody a smile when you hold a door for them, or whether it's going and changing the law. The principle is still strong. And I get up every single day to show my kids that if you curl up in a ball, the world will still keep turning. So you just may as well get out there and put your game face on and get the fuck on with it. Because you know what, don't get me wrong, we all take time where we sit back and go, okay, deep breath, you know. But you know, somebody will go to me. I remember one of the mums at the school recently went to me, when are you going to stop going on about stuff? I was like, when are you going to fuck off? She doesn't speak to me now. Beautiful, fantastic stuff.
We've had that a lot. We have a lot of get over it, and I'm like, no, we are. We're
we're over it. We're over it. We're just going to stop it happening. You know, I'm not. You know,
we're here to speak and tell our truth, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I met the Duchess of Cornwall back in January, and the first thing she said to me was, "Oh, I saw your work on the television with the Naked Threat campaign," and she just like held my hand for what I felt like was a bit too long. So in my hand, this was like her hand, and my hand was like hanging down. I was just all limp-handed, like and in my head, because I'm really my strokes sort of affect my impulses. In my head, I wanted to just start going, take my strong hand, and I'm like, don't do that now, please don't do that now. And she was so lovely. And she was like, I want to say thank you to you for making light from darkness. And it really stuck with me. And I remember being like, wow. And then I remember somebody saying something to me, and I said, you know what, you're not afraid of fire when you are the fire.
I love that sentence. I've heard that before and been like, I
started using it like back last year, because I was like, do you know what? No, I'm not. I'm not afraid of, you know. So my husband decided to take the very scary step, because it's very difficult, of a step parent adoption for our oldest two kids.
That's lovely.
It was really hard, and the second he filed, my ex just blew up. He made every accusation under the sun. Then we found out he was a sex offender who was found guilty. He pleaded guilty the month before the sex offenders register became a thing, and nobody ever told me.
Fucking hell.
His daughter, who by that point was grown up, 3 Christmases ago gave my husband a letter saying, look, I know there's 10 years between us, but you are the closest thing to a father figure I've ever had. May I take your surname legally? Which she did. So she's now Saunders too. And she's part of our family. She's obviously got her mum, but she's got me too.
That's lovely.
She's, you know, the kids know that she's their sister, and even my youngest classes her as his sister. He doesn't get that I'm not her mum. He's never really thought about it. The day will come, but whatever. And we jumped through hoops and hoops and hoops, and we had 3 false start final hearings. One where my ex couldn't get out of his cell. The second one because he had COVID, didn't kill him, fuck's sake. And a bunch of other stuff. And we got to the last one, and we went until 7:30 at night. The judge was like, I'm not walking away from this. This is being done. And her summing up was over 45 minutes that she'd written.
Jesus.
And at the end of it, she was like, you have no right to those children, because biologically or not, you're not their father. I grant adoption to Benjamin Saunders. And my kids had no idea that the adoption hearing was happening, because we'd had so many false starts. I couldn't break them anymore.
Yeah, of course.
My son was completely broken by finding out that Ben wasn't his dad. We'd never hammered home that Ben was his dad, but we'd never denied it with Henry growing up behind him. And to sit him down and not only go, your dad's not your dad, and then social services go, you need to tell him his dad's in prison because he's a bad person as well.
Oh, fucking hell, that's a lot.
Yeah, we had a fucking 3 years of nightmares of crying. Am I a bad person? I don't want to go to prison. It was awful.
Oh, bless him.
And they came home. My mother-in-law brought them back, and Ben handed them both a piece of paper with Thomas Harry Saunders, because Thomas's legal name was Charles in the middle, which was my ex's dad's name, well, middle name, and Darcy Victoria Saunders. And they were just like, what? And they were like, it's our name, because the school already allowed them to go by that name and everything.
Yeah.
And Darcy was like, oh my God, you changed our names. And Tom looked at Ben and went, we're adopted. And Ben was like, yeah. And it was just, we just all cried like babies, if I'm honest.
That's made me all like emotional.
Yeah.
I love
and
that.
We're still waiting for the final adoption certificate to come through, because basically, the adoption certificates came, but so they've now got all their new birth certificates and that, but the judge wants to write a letter, because you've got a choice of either going and attending a like celebration at the court, which is in Nottingham, or getting a letter. So we're like, we'll have a letter, and we've decided at the end we're going to go to Pizza Hut, because that's what the kids want, so whatever. During the last couple of weeks of the adoption, last couple of months, I got a phone call from the local authority appointed solicitor for the children. So a local authority will appoint a solicitor to represent the children, to make sure there's no influence from the parents. They act in the kids' best interest. Totally understandable.
Yeah.
And she phoned me crying at 6 o'clock at night. I was like, are you okay? And she was like, I am so sorry. And I was like, okay. And she was like, he's got the Annex A report and he's had it for 2 weeks. For anybody listening that doesn't know what an Annex A report is, that includes up-to-date photos of me and my family, our address, the school's addresses, my bank details, employers' details, my direct debits, my family members, statements of anybody who has supported us.
How has he got
everything? Because when her clerk sent out the court bundle that we got as well, we got the Annex A report as well, but obviously we didn't even look at it, didn't even think anything of it. They sent it to him in prison and he printed it all off.
What the fuck?
It took them a further 8 weeks to get it off him, during which time I had death threats from the brother, who's now been deported to Canada after 2 IPPs. At the time, I didn't know that he was Canadian, and the police's recommendation was go and get a dog.
What?
Cool, yeah.
Our local MP was brilliant, and he got fibre put in within a couple of weeks, so we could run a Wi-Fi CCTV system. We got a dog, not to die for us, but to bark. But she's absolutely lovely. I adore her. She's my friend's ex-therapy dog, and she's brilliant. Love her to pieces. She's a working cocker. She's an absolute donut. She can't go anywhere without something in her mouth. She's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's what I like.
She's been marked by Amazon as a dangerous dog, because they decided to let themselves into my conservatory. And she was like, get the fuck out my house.
Yeah.
She didn't go for him, but she did bark really aggressively. I was shocked. And she will do it if she sees people. There's a lady who rides her bike through because we've got 2 entrances through our farmyard, and she'll ride it through, which is fine, but Eden will always bark at her.
Yeah.
And that's good, because that's what I need.
He's protected.
Exactly. But yeah, nobody seemed to understand that. I was like, okay, so my ex is in a prison specifically for sex offenders in Portland, Dorset, the Verne, it's called. It's where they put Gary Glitter. Okay, they've got a 5-a-side football pitch and a koi carp pond for a comfortable reflection period. I assume that's where they think about the children whose lives they've ruined. So it's only for paedophiles and rapists and serious sexual offenders. Just last year, they had all their PlayStations taken off of them because they were downloading child porn through them.
What the fuck, man?
You can Google that. Google the Verne, Dorset, and that will be the first thing that comes up.
For fuck's sake.
So apparently they should live not having to look over their shoulders. But I'm very confused how anybody can expect a prison officer to go and work in that environment all the time. Another part of the Annex A report was that his prison probation officer had basically written quite a damning section saying that he was a nuisance, that he was deliberately melodramatic, that he was probably likely to serve his entire sentence and all of that. So he's put in literally complaint after complaint against her. I then found out that he was phoning the police multiple times a week to report me for rape and domestic abuse, as he'd decided that I raped him, I sexually abused him, and I'm the narcissist that controlled him. Not gonna lie, that almost broke me, because I was just like, how dare you? 4 years he's been in prison and he still cannot,
Yeah, he's still trying to ruin your life.
moved across the country. We're still locked in battle with the solicitors that disclose that information, because I'm like, you are going to pay for all of the cameras I've had. You're going to pay for the stress. You are going to pay. This is not okay. So I've got the Information Commissioner's Office involved, and they are being fantastic. There's still investigations ongoing. They're doing what they need to do.
Wow.
In the middle of that, I now lecture at the Metropolitan Police every 5 weeks. So it was supposed to be a one-off. They heard me speak, and they've asked me to do it every time since. I'm actually doing my first facilitating next week, which is I get my own group of officers for 2 days with Sadiq Khan watching me. No pressure.
Oh, wow.
I was like, can you not sit with someone else? No, I'll sit with you. Brilliant. Cheers. Thanks.
Great. Brill.
I've got some absolutely gorgeous crew clothing dresses that crew sent me last week, which was very, very kind of them. They, I was like, I don't have a huge follower base on like Instagram and that. And they were like, actually, it's more about the people who genuinely wear our stuff. You're always in our dresses. Because I'm like, they're dresses you can wear with trainers or you can wear with heels. So it works for me. I could be a mum in them, but I can also look smart.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And they were like, by the way, we'd like to give a bunch of outfits to your husband. And I went, he doesn't even have Instagram. And they went, doesn't matter. Every single photo you post of him, he's in a crew clothing t-shirt, and we want to say thank you. And I was just like, wow.
That's so lovely.
Yeah. So yeah, life goes on. I was made a Survivor Ambassador of Refuge last year.
Yeah.
I raised over £500,000 with Chelsea during the first lockdown.
Wow.
I've raised all sorts of money all over the place and had big donor donations come in directly off my appeal videos to them.
Wow.
I do a lot of private public speaking now, so to like banking sectors, financiers, things like that, who have got really good employee wellbeing programs, which is really encouraging. And I've also recently delivered talks to Sussex Police. I've got Yorkshire Police next month, I think, and a few other ones as well.
My neck of the woods.
And it's kind of like, you know what? Nothing's going to make me be quiet anymore.
Yes.
And in another podcast, I said I was like the whole survivor, I strive thing. I survived what I went through. I've risen above it, and I'm going to thrive. And that's what anybody can do. They just remember, all you need to do is survive. You will survive. We are all so much stronger than we realize. Whenever you find out somebody's had a bereavement, or in my case, they go, oh my God, how did you survive? You're like, you will. That's the point. And, nothing is impossible, because the word itself says I'm possible.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
You're an absolute inspiration to everyone. Like, it's incredible. Like the work.
I don't know. You should tell some of the anti-feminists on Twitter that I had one guy. In the end, I just kept calling him by the wrong name till he blocked me. I was like, oh, the trash. I was like, the trash took itself out. Brilliant.
Do you know what? I actually said that last night on our podcast, because it's the same sort of thing that since Nat and myself have used our voices and told our stories and built this platform. For other survivors, we've had the same. Same
yeah,
thing.
you get to, and it's
we get so many people going, it only happened to one person, or why don't you just get over it, or why do you keep talking about it? And I'm like, because we can and we will. So
my
like
favorite one, we got a tweet that was like, you can't even compliment a woman nowadays without it being rape. And I was like, no, two very different things, but
yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
I did have one guy though, he turned around to me, sent me a message after I was on the TV, because you'll get guys who will be like, oh you're absolutely beautiful, or hi Natasha, how are you? I'm like, dude, why would I want to speak to you? Fuck off, I'm married. Seriously.
Go away,
and I had this one guy, and he was like, Natasha, I just want to send you my heartfelt thoughts, because you are far too beautiful to have ever gone through what you went through. And I was like, that's a backhanded comment, bro.
That's so offensive. Yeah.
And he was like, I don't mean any offense. And he didn't.
No.
But I had to correct him.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, that's absolutely shocking. And he was like, I'm really sorry. And I was like, I realised you were trying to compliment me, but that's really offended me. Please don't ever say anything like that again.
Yeah.
And it's just there are two different things. There's ignorance, and then there's not being educated. Once you're educated, if you've got awareness, if it's lack of awareness, then that's different. And I'll talk to them and I'll explain. If you're ignorant, you're a twat. Take yourself out of the way, take yourself back to the twat farm and close the gate behind you, because nobody's interested. Honestly, some days the twat gate gets left wide open. Do you know what I mean? It's like goats. They're everywhere. They're all over the place. And it's just like, I had one guy message me on Insta, and he was like, if you want, I'll pin you down and show you what a real cock's like. And I was like, oh, your mother must be so proud.
Jesus.
Wow.
I was like,
The thing is as well, we've found on our TikTok a
mm,
lot of people who give us shit are
mhm,
young boys,
yeah.
which
Yeah,
scares the shit out
teenagers.
of me.
I
We
was
had
actually on the
one
phone.
guy. Is it a duet thing that you do? And it was him like duetting us. But it was such. When I clicked on it,
So
I was like,
aggressive.
he looks about 11 years old. Like
Yeah,
he was
yeah, yeah,
obviously
yeah,
trolling us for
yeah, yeah,
we put up about women want to be
yeah,
safe. We want to walk down the street if that's okay, if you
yeah.
don't mind. And he was
Yeah.
like, just get over it. He was like, it happened to one woman one time. And I'm like, it's not though, is it? But
It's not.
I
No.
didn't even reply because I was like, this, if that was my child, like,
I'd be
I don't,
so ashamed.
like, he's 11
Do you
years
know?
old.
I was on the phone to West Mercia Police's, well, Herefordshire Police in this area's community safeguarding lead today, because she goes into my daughter's school and a bunch of other schools and talks about sexing, all sorts of stuff, everything. And she was talking to me and she was like, maybe we could have a chat at some point because we've got a lot of cadets, if you could come in and maybe do a bit of an age appropriate. And we were just, touching base basically. And I said to her, I said, I was walking down the road a few months ago. My daughter goes to a proper rural school, right? It's half the size of the school she would have gone to in Nottingham, which was a village school.
Yeah.
And these boys were walking down the road joking about rape.
Oh, Jesus.
And I was just like, boys,
It's
what are you
terrifying.
doing?
It's
And they were like,
terrifying.
and I remember when all of their friends started following me on Instagram, and I started thinking, shit, is the content I'm putting out appropriate? And then I remember somebody else going to me, I've been an officer actually at the Met, was like, are their parents making sure that all the other content they're seeing is appropriate? Learning about, she was like learning about, she was like learning about consent from your, it's like I sang Love the Way You Lie by Eminem a couple of months ago, but I changed the words. But people weren't expecting me to change the words, and then I rapped, which was awful, but I rapped it, and I rapped it with different words, and at the end people were like, fuck. And I was like, don't get me wrong, I'm a huge fan of Eminem. In fact, Eminem saved my life, which people go, Eminem hates women. And I'm like, I rapped his music when I was being pinned down and raped because the speed that I had to focus on that rap in my head kept me alive.
Yeah. Wow.
It helped me shut down.
Yeah.
And people don't, I remember being asked not to say that once.
Why?
Yeah, by a press team. They were like, don't mention that you like Eminem. And I was like,
that's your
why?
truth.
I was like, I do. I'm a huge Eminem fan. He's made some shitty choices in his life, don't get me wrong. But his music saved my life. All the kids at my daughter's school think it's hilarious because I'll still pull up with Eminem blaring now. And they're all like, your mum's so cool. And I'm like, whatever, But I'll be listening to Eminem when I'm like 74 because some of those songs have huge, huge meaning to me.
Yeah.
Probably my favourite song in the whole world is Walk on Water, because for me, it's really hard to do a balancing act where people think the sun shines out of your ass and not slip up in a world where people are watching you. I'm not a celebrity or anything like that, but there are people who are quite vulnerable who look to me and I can't let them down.
Yeah.
I can't let them down. I remember getting a phone call from my police officer, and he sounds like he smokes 120 fags a day, which he does. And he's like, Natasha, down the phone. I know it's him. I literally go, Stuart. He's like an uncle I didn't want. We've been together like 8 years. He knows more about me. I speak to him more often than my dad. And
I love that.
I remember him saying to me, I've had a complaint from the prison. I thought I'd relay to you. And I was like, what's that? And he was like, he's seen you on the television and he doesn't like it. And I was like, are you telling me to stop? He went, oh, fuck no. No, not at all. Carry on. And I must admit, every time I'm on the TV, every time I'm on the news, every time I'm in the newspaper, I know I'm in the prison. And I know people will see me. And I know if he doesn't see me, other people will. And I'm like, yeah, you fucking see my face, because I'm going to make sure every single woman knows who and what you are. When you get out, you may as well have stayed in, because you are scum. And now I know that you're a pedo as well. So trust me, dude, you will never ever escape this. And he shouldn't. He ruined, a woman came forward at the trial that he had lived with for 3 years, not told that he had a wife and child at home, and when she found out and drove off, he punched her window through and tried to strangle her. Okay.
Jesus.
Now for my trial there were no charges pressed. Okay. They decided that they didn't really know what went on. For
Oh,
my
God.
trial, they knocked on her door after 15 years and said, hey, will you come give evidence for this random woman in a rape trial? And she was like, yes, I will, yeah.
Wow.
Thank God she said that,
And
though.
That's
and
amazing.
you know what? After my 3rd or 4th media engagement, she got in touch with me and we're now friends.
I love that.
And I say to her all the time, she is such a huge champion of me. And she's always like, you're amazing, you're this, you're that. And I'm like, yeah, but without your help, I wouldn't be here. Because I don't know what would have happened if he got off. There shouldn't be a guilt in seeing your rapist go to prison, but there is, because there are so many women that I meet that go, they didn't take action. The CPS. I spoke at an event in Liverpool a few weeks ago, and there was a whole table of CPS there, and they definitely didn't like what I had to say.
Yeah.
And I was like, charging decisions is, it always gets put on the police, but it's not always the police. They send it off to the CPS, and then what are they supposed to do when the CPS say no? I think my file went back and forth to the CPS like 4 times over 3 years to just build it and build it and build it and build it. And I'm like, if it wasn't for the tenacity of my officer, who had a full breakdown and was off for 9-10 months during my investigation, it wouldn't have got to where it is now.
Wow.
That's terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh my God.
But I could fill like another 6 hours with the shit that we went through, but I digress.
But honestly, like we've listened to your story and it's mind blowing, and you are incredible, and there needs to be a freaking Netflix documentary about this because it's insane and incredible, and a lot of women need to hear the incredible work. I mean, I've said incredible 12 times. The incredible work you're now doing, and even just little snippets of like sentences you've said. I'm like, oh, I'm going to clip that, and that's going to be used because that's just brilliant and gold. And it's just amazing.
Yeah.
Like you are amazing. So thank you so much for coming on our little podcast.
No worries at all.
Thank you for
No
all your
worries
work
at all.
as well.
Yes.
So keep
worries
it up.
at all.
As survivors, thank you for what you're doing.
And if there's anything that we can help with, or I mean,
Yeah. Vice versa. Exactly the same. Yeah. If you need anything, drop me a message. It's been lovely to talk to you. Talk at you. Not really talk to you. More talk at you.
No, you're honestly
gobsmacked.
Yeah, you're incredible. Like just keep doing what you're doing.
Just
you're amazing.
Anything that I can do, just exactly where I am.
And same.
And if I can't help, I will know somebody who can.
Love that.
Yeah.
Honestly,
no worries, ladies. Have a nice day, won't you? Take care.
Thank you so
much,
much. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Woo! That was hard.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been so quiet in one of our episodes.
It was the bit when she said about when she'd just given birth.
Oh my God.
Both of our faces, obviously this isn't a visual podcast, but we literally were like just dead silent, both had our mouths wide open, and I was like, say something, comforting, say something.
I mean,
like,
the silence speaks volumes anyway.
Just
because that was a pure reaction. Because, like I said, I knew a little bit about her story. She obviously has information about herself and why she does what she does, but like that was down to the bone details. And
it's like the law that she had changed.
I love that.
I quote about that like regularly in life. Like when you told me that it was her, I was like, oh, maybe like she helped, like, I don't know. You know when you like downplay it in your head, and then when she started talking about it, I was like, oh my God, you're responsible for that huge win.
Yeah. And we've talked about that in other podcasts, because I said I've been threatened by my ex. He sent me a picture of myself via email and was like, if you don't unblock me, I'm going to send this to everyone. And she's the reason why she's amazing.
Absolutely incredible human.
And how supportive is she that she's now happy to help us and educate us more? Like, she's everything that we all stand for.
Bless her. Well,
love
that
it.
was a really good episode. Well done, Natasha. You're
incredible.
A queen.
We love you.
Natasha for Prime Minister.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I'm there.
So before we go with this podcast, we're going to do something we haven't done in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But I believe Farah has a win of the week. Whoop, 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 whoop.
I do have a win of the week, but it kind of involves us both, to be fair.
Okay.
But I just want to give a shout out to I can't even believe I'm saying this, because like, what an incredible man. But the CEO of Acast, which is obviously the platform that we use for our podcast, incredible platform. He has been so amazing. He sent us the nicest email about what we're doing. And he's happily said, you know, he's happy to help with anything. And he's also put our podcast, Take Back the Beat. He sent it out in an email to some of his contacts, and he also put us on his
newsletter,
like a newsletter that goes out on Acast website.
We were like second
we're number
down
2.
As well. I was like, oh, look at the little lions. Oh.
But that just shows, you know, what an incredible man supporting it. And like I said, I won't tell everyone what he said, because, you know, that was very nice for Nat and myself to see, but he was very supportive of it all, and he's very much behind us. And so we just want to say thank you. You're an absolute dream. So yeah, it just meant it meant the world to us. It really did. So thank you.
Acast are amazing. If anyone out there is thinking of starting up a podcast, Acast make it so easy to do. It's honestly like we'd never even considered a podcast before we started this up, and we had no Scooby-Doo.
No.
And it's so simple,
so
through
easy.
Acast.
Yeah.
And just a massive Ross, Acast, you are a dream.
Yeah.
And we adore you greatly.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll see you next week, guys.
Love you.
Okay, love you now. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
We do apologise if anyone was triggered by any of the dialogue we used today. We are still learning, and we are only just beginning to talk about our own experiences. We're aware that trigger warnings are completely different for everybody, so please bear with us. We love you all. We also want to hear your experiences. If there's anything you'd like to share with us, any stories, anything you are happy to discuss on this podcast, you can stay anonymous if you would like. Please send us an email at takebackthebeattour@gmail.com. That's takebackthebeattour@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media at Take Back the Beat. Thanks, guys. We love you all.